Well, I'm a little crooked there, but it'll have to do. Today we are going to be making just a simple tote. This is just real easy tote. There are no pockets on the inside. It's basically, you need a total of 4 pieces of fabric and then some kind of strapping, or you could make your own straps out of your fabric if you had enough fabric. I choose to use cotton webbing just because it's easier. I've also used polyester webbing. Both are great for making handles for these bags. I do make my handles a little longer, that way they could be worn over the shoulder and basically carried like a bag, purse, you know, that kind of thing for shopping or for whatever you choose to use. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this tutorial. As you know, I am not a professional. However, I do play one on YouTube as a professional sewist, seamist, or seamstress. So I hope you enjoy the tutorial. Alright, see you guys there at the table. Bye. For today's project, you're going to need 2 pieces of your outer fabric that measure 16 by 16 inches. Now I have already lined these with a fusible woven interfacing, SF 101. You could use just a heavy weight interfacing, but by using a woven interfacing, it actually bonds to your fabric and makes your fabric much stronger. So that's what I choose to do. So you'll need 2 pieces. Now, since this is a directional, what I normally do is I will line these up and just bring them together so that I can basically mark the center here. And generally what I will do is I will just clip a small V there. Now I didn't line these up directly, but you kind of get the idea. And that just helps later on when you get into some marking issues, if you have pockets or things that you want to add to it. And basically just a small little V. Now you're going to need, like I said, 2 of the outer. You will also need 2 of your inner fabric, your lining. And basically I'm going to do the same thing. You can line those up in the center and just make a small clip like that. Now, because I sew for a living, generally what I will do is I will place a label here for me. You do not have to. Now this is just a simple tote that we're making today. There are not going to be any pockets in it. So yeah, it's going to be real basic and simple. Then you are going to need 2 straps. You can make these out of your outer fabric, your inner fabric, another fabric, whatever you choose to do. This is actually like a cotton twill, cotton webbing. And basically I just cut 2 anywhere from 22 inches to 27 inches. Because that's what works with what I'm doing. Now, I have made straps in the past. Generally, if you make a strap, you'll, want it about 4 inches. You'll fold it in half, then fold the edges into the center, and then fold it in half again, press it, and then you'll sew down both sides so that you have a nice strap. And you can add, interfacing if you want, or pellon, or a piece of batting to make it softer if you want it softer on your shoulder. But that is it for it right now. Then you will also need, your normal things, scissors, a marking tool. It can be any kind of pen. It can be a friction pen. It can be one of these nice little markers with the color. These are washout cloth markers. But where you're basically going to be marking, it's not going to be shown on the outside. So generally I will use just a regular pen for that. And you're also going to need some clips for this so that you can clip your pieces together. You could use pins if you wanted to. I prefer to use clips. It's faster, it's easier, and I don't have to worry about stabbing my finger. So, yeah. And you will also need a sewing machine. You can sew it by hand if you are so inclined, but I choose to use a sewing machine, so yeah. Now the next thing that you want to do is, we've already marked the top. You do want to mark your corners on your bag. You want to give it, if you're going to give it a nice 5-inch, approximately 5 inches, somewhere between 4/7/8 to 5 inches, then you're also going to need some kind of marking tool. And you're going to want to mark your corner in at 2.5 inches, if that's what you want for your size. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to do a 2-inch on the corners. So I'm basically going to bring it down, line it up, and then I will just mark that 2 inches right there. And then you're going to cut that out. It's real simple. Just take and you're going to cut. You want to make sure these are on the lower edge of your bag. And these you can save to use as ladders for sewing later, or you could actually take and use them to put in a 2-inch square quilts that you're making. Now you want to do the same for your outside, but you want to make sure that you're getting the lower corners. Now my fabric is directional, so I am going to make sure that I get the lower corners. Now what I do with this many times is I will actually clip it together here, just because of where it sits. Then like I said again, I'm going to line up my 2 inches. And basically, your whatever your measurement is pretty close to twice what your box bottom is going to be. If you're doing, if you absolutely want an absolute 4-inch box bottom, then you're probably going to, if you're using a 1/4-inch seam, is make it 2 1/4, 2 1/4. But this is a nice size bag, so it'll work just fine. And then, like I said, you're just going to take and you're going to cut it. And sometimes with this interfacing, it's a little difficult to get those right on those corners, but do the best you can. And then you're ready to go. Now these I have kept to use as ladders, and what a ladder is basically is it is a piece of fabric that you will use at a later date. Saying like this is a ladder, I would fold it in half so I could start sewing on this edge, and then when I come to my fabric I don't have that little pucker that happens when you're sewing. So that is basically how we get that ready, and then we are ready to basically start sewing. What you want to do is you want to make sure that your right sides are right sides together. Now, when you sew this, you're going to sew along both side seams all the way down on the outside and all the way across the bottom seam as well. And you can use 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 3/8, 5/8, whatever you choose to use. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch. That is just something that I choose to use because I use a 1/4 inch foot. Now you can clip these together, and generally I will clip one, down at the bottom, one on each side, so that when I take it to my machine, it's ready to sew. And that is all the preparation you need for the outside. Now for the inner lining, you also want to make sure that you are placing those right sides together. Whoops. Just got to do what I'm telling you to do, right? And you're going to place those right sides together, matching those up. Now, I know a lot of people use pins for this portion. I do not always, but I will place a clip there. I will place a clip on the very bottom section, but I know that I'm going to leave a large portion of this open so that I can turn the bag, and it's a little bit easier if you do that, or you can leave it along the side, but you want to make sure that you've got your sides lined up nice and neat. I use clips just because that's my preferred method. Now, and then once again you're going to sew along the sides, both sides of your lining, but when you get to your bottom seam you want to leave a nice big opening. You want to be able to, what they call, berth your bag through it. And that's basically turn your bag through this. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, because I am going to sell this later on, I am going to place a tag on one of these pieces. So, yeah, we'll get back to it, and then we'll get ready to do our sewing. Okay, we're at the sewing machine. Now, I always wear a pair of glasses for eye protection because you never know when that sewing needle is gonna pop. So, it's a good idea to make sure that you are wearing some kind of eye protection. Now, like I said, for the sides, we're just going to sew right along the sides. Now, I am using a 1/4 inch seam, so I always start just off of it, although you can use the ladder. Like I said, I'm going to sew up to a certain point and got a back stitch because that's real important. Now this is the lining that we're sewing. into the bag. And basically we're going to do the same thing. Going to sew that 1/4 of an inch. But this one, we will actually sew across the bottom of the bag as well. And then once again, we'll go up along the other side. Now, what we're going to do next is actually box the corners. And for boxing the corners, you're basically just going to meet those seams. You can open them up if you want to. Sometimes I just turn them, one side to one side so they nest. But basically, you're just going to place those together. And you can pin it or you can use clips. And then you're going to sew straight across to form your boxed corners. Now I do sew this seam twice, just because I'm a little crazy about that. And then you're going to box the corners on your lining as well. Finish boxing this one, and then I'll show you how I mark up the bag to put the handles on and how we put those handles on. Be back in a few minutes. Now with your outer bag that you've done, what you basically want to do is to open that up and push out those corners. On either side. If you need to trim some strings, do it. Now, generally what I do with my bag is I will take it and I will put them seam to seam. And generally I will put a pin there just to hold it. Now, I get those tops lined up, and then with my marking tool, this is a 3-inch wide ruler. What I generally do will come in, lay that across the seam, and make a mark. And that's not a good enough mark with this one, so. But I'm going to make a small, very small mark right here. And that is going to tell me where I'm going to put that strap. I'll do the same on the other side. And there are colored markers that you can use, pens that'll make it a little different, easier for seeing. But you're going to do that on both sides of the bag. I don't know if I got that clear enough to see. Yeah, I did. Alright. Now, from here, you are going to take your straps and you are going to lay them on the inner portion of your bag. and you will clip that. Now you can unpin your bag now. You're not going to put this strap to this one. You're actually going to open your bag up again. You're going to make sure that your strap is nice and even. And you'll bring this one over here to this piece. And then you will clip it. And then you'll turn the bag over and place your other strap same way. Gonna find your mark, where your mark is. My mark is right there. Gonna clip it. Then I'm gonna make sure that my handle is not twisted. Bring it up to the other mark, which is right here. And clip it. Then you're going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam just on each side where your straps are. Make sure that they're nice and straight, and that's just to make sure that they stay in place while you finish the rest of the bag. I'll do that, and I'll be back, and I'll show you how we're going to put this bag together. We have our outer bag, and the handles are sewn in place, and you've got your right side out. You're going to take your bag inner lining, and you're placing your bag and the straps inside of that bag. Okay, you're going to line up your seams, and generally I will do that, and this is one place where I do use pins, is on the seams. And I will line it up on both sides. You do want to make sure that your handles are nice and tucked in. And it can get a little confusing, as you can see there. I was a little confused as to where my seams were. You're basically going to put those seams together. And I am going to use a pin here. Now from here, what I do is I just shape my bag inside of the lining. That helps when it comes time to pinning or whatever when we get around to this. Now, you remember I had those 2 notches, so I'm going to line up those notches. And I'm going to place a clip. Now, I am also going to take and bring my bag, and I am going to put a clip where the strap is. I am also going to make sure I do that on this side as well. And then I go to the opposite side and do the same thing. Line up that triangle there. Clip here. Now, what you're going to do next is you are going to sew a 1/2 inch all the way around the entire bag. Now remember, we have this opening down here at the bottom, and that's where you will berth the bag. So I'll go sew that, and then I'll be back and we'll berth the bag and we can finish it up. I'm not going to show you this part of the sewing. I mean, it's just sewing. I don't think you really need to see that portion, but yeah, be back in a minute. Now I've sewn around the edge 1/2 inch. Sometimes you have to ease this in Sometimes your lining may be a little bit bigger. You may need to put a small pleat. Usually I put it behind here or right in the corner so it can be seen. But generally your fabric will have a little bit of stretch, and sometimes you can just get it to work that way. If you've sewn it with the right seams on both sides, it should fit no problem. Now for birthing the bag, you're going to reach in and you're basically going to birth that bag. You're going to pull it out through that opening. And then when you get your lining out here, what I do is I make sure that my corners are pushed out. And I also try to make sure that all of my corners have been pushed out. Now, from here, generally what I will do is I will take it to the iron and give it a press here. You want to fold those in, and you can do a finger press. And then generally you just want to sew along that bottom. You can hand sew it or machine sew it. I prefer to machine sew, so I'm going to do that, and then when I come back I'll show you what we do next. So here we have our bag. Here's the inner lining and there's the bag. Now basically what we're just going to do is we're going to push that inner lining into our bag. And generally I try to make sure the corners are in the corners. You know, it's a lot of fun playing with it. Then you want to bring your corners up. Now you can press this, and I generally do press it before I do the sewing, but not always, you know, because I'm kind of lazy like that. And then you just want to go and place some clips along there. You want to line it up. Generally I'll then from here go over to the other side. And sometimes you've got to roll that seam a little bit back and forth to get it where you want it to go. But once again, you're going to place those clips all the way around. And I always make sure that I place a clip wherever my straps are. It just makes it a little bit easier. And don't skimp on this clips or pins if you're pinning. By all means, use as many as you need. Just makes it go a lot easier when you actually get to the sewing part. Like I said, you can use pins. I prefer to use the clips. And then generally what I will do is I will sew anywhere from 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch all the way around the top of this, and then your bag is finished and it is ready to be used. Alright guys, that is it for this. I hope you enjoyed this short little tutorial. I know it wasn't a lot in detail, but you know, sewing isn't all that difficult. It's just a matter of practicing it. Now that our bag has been sewn around the top, now's the time to take your scissors, your snippers, and to start clipping all those threads, because you're going to have some here, there, and whatnot. And you'll notice sometimes, like this, got a nice little string there, so I'm going to have to clip it. And sometimes they're just loose strands that were stuck in between the material as you were sewing. Like this here is strands that were stuck in between the material, and I just sewed it right in. But then your bag is ready to go. You're ready to use it. The only other thing that I generally will do is, because I sell these bags, I will take and I will press it in this manner so that it shows up as a nice tote bag. And there you have it. That's a real easy tote bag to be made. I did forget to tell you the thread that I was using was Isacord, and it is in a tan color. You do want to make sure your color either complements your bags or matches it, because I'm using the giraffes. I chose to use the tan. Sometimes I will use the tan twill or cotton webbing. It's basically a cotton webbing. You'll find it usually in the notions where you find the different ribbons that you can purchase. But this is a nice tote, and hope you enjoyed the small tutorial. Alright, see you guys soon. Bye.